lies in ruins. Here, justice must prevail. The trial begins. History is made.
Good evening, everyone. So, we're going to be talking about a very dark topic. Very dark. So, imagine the silence. Silence so thick it hurts. The world has just crawled out of the ashes of the deadliest war in history. 60 million gone. Entire people erased. And now, in a rebuilt courtroom in the ruins of Nazi Germany, the architects of that nightmare sit chained to the dock. No escape, no mercy. This is the Nuremberg trials, not vengeance, something far more terrifying: accountability. I'm Rebecca, and on Red True Crime, we don't shy away from the darkness. Today, we step inside the most explosive courtroom in history: the defendants, the prosecutors, the evidence that broke them, the aftermath that still echoes, and how this trial cracked open the door for the International Criminal Court. If your heart races at True Justice Served Cold, subscribe now. Turn on notifications because this one will haunt you. I decided to talk about this topic because with everything going on in Iran, the bombings, and how people are calling the bombing of Iran unjustifiable. That's not including the crimes that have been going on between Russia and the Ukraine, or Israel and Gaza. A lot this there are going to be some more tribunals coming up at the end of all this at some point. So I decided to go into the very first war tribunal, the first that created the International Criminal Court. Last weekend, I actually watched the Nuremberg movie, one with Russell Crowe and Rami Malek, and it was pretty good. Didn't get the fanfare, but again, it's a historical movie, and sometimes people are just not into history. And but it was good, so I recommend watching it. So, but in May of 1945, let's talk about where we are today, or how we got to today. So in May 1945, Hitler's Reich collapses. I'm sorry. My throat is very dry. Bear with me just a second. Okay. Sorry. So Hitler's Reich collapses in May of 1945. The Allies stand over the smoking corpse of Europe, literally. But the real war, the one for truth, begins at this point. Churchill wanted bullets, not trials. Stalin wanted to show the executions. But the Americans insisted, no, we prove it, we make the world watch. I see the sides of all three in this. So, in August of 1945, the London Charter creates the International Military Tribunal. 4 powers, 1 goal. Nuremberg, chosen because it was the cradle of Nazi rallies. Now it becomes their grave. The charges: conspiracy, crimes against peace, war crimes, and the newest, most chilling, crimes against humanity, because that was created at this point. But the stakes, if they fail, the world learns monsters walk free. If they succeed, no leader ever feels untouchable again. Oh, shoot. Bear 1 second. My, tablet just died. So, hold on, I gotta get into another thing so I can pull it up. Oh, just bear with me just another moment. I apologize, I know this is not professional. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Bear with me just another moment. Why can't I find everything? This is crazy. Here we go. Sorry. I found it. Okay. Get back to where I was. We already know that May 1945, Hitler's Reich collapses. And, we're now in August of 1945. The London Charter creates the International Military Tribunal, 4 powers. So we've already gone on the charges: conspiracy, crimes against peace, war crimes, and the newest, most chilling, crimes against humanity. And we already know what the stakes are. If they fail, monsters walk free. But if they win, then criminals know that no one's untouchable. Okay, so the judges file in like executioners in robes. Britain's Sir Geoffrey Lawrence presides, calm, unyielding. America's Francis Biddle, former Attorney General, eyes sharp. Francis Henri Donadieu de Vabre, and the Soviets' Iona Nitchenko, veteran of Stalin's purges, face like stone. The prosecutors: Robert H. Jackson, U.S. Supreme Court Justice, voice trembling with fury in his opening, and quoted, "These wrongs are so malignant, civilization cannot tolerate them being ignored." Britain's Hartley Shawcross, France's team, Soviet Roman Rudenko, haunted by 20 million Soviet dead. Let's get into the defendants. They chose lawyers from an approved list. No Nazis, but every defense whispered the same poison: superior orders. I didn't know. Now, the courtroom. There was over 1,000 staff, headphones and for 4 languages, and 21 men in the dock. Once gods, now prisoners, watching their empire crumble in real time. So let's name the devils. Hermann Goring, the Reich Marshal, morphine addled, art thieving bully. He built the Gestapo, burned the Reichstag, laughed as Europe bled. In the dock, he's smirking, defiant, like he still owned the room. Rudolf Hess, Hitler's shadow, flew to Britain in madness, now claiming amnesia. His eyes are pretty vacant. Joachim von Ribbentrop, foreign minister, architect of pacts that unleashed hell. Wilhelm Keitel, or Le Keitel, the yes man who signed death orders without blinking. Ernst Kaltenbrunner, Heydrich, successor, ice cold, overseer of gas chambers in Eisengappengruppen slaughter squads. I'm sure I'm butchering some of these German pronunciations. Alfred Rosenberg, the philosopher whose racial poison justified genocide. Hans Frank, butcher of Poland, who turned Warsaw into a graveyard. Julius Streicher, der Stürmer, hate merchant, whose words lit the fuse for the Kristallnacht. Fritz Sackel enslaved millions, worked them to death. And others. Speer, the good Nazi who later claimed remorse, but only after the noose loomed. These weren't cartoon villains. They were educated, they were charming, powerful, and utterly without souls. November 29th, 1945. Trial drags 216 days, but one afternoon everything changes. November 29th, 1945, prosecutor Thomas Dodd stands. The prosecution will now show you their own films. Lights out, projector whirs. Grainy footage rolls, liberated camps, piles of bodies, emaciated survivors, staring into the lens like ghosts. Gas chambers, ovens. The courtroom freezes. And I will say this. In the Nuremberg movie, they show the actual footage that they showed in the courtroom in 1945. It was by far the most disturbing thing I have ever seen. It really was. I literally didn't sleep that night after I watched that. To watch someone starve to death, to execute someone because you don't like the genealogy of this person, their history, to do medical experiments on twin children, killing most of them. These guys are all monsters. And you see this on these films. You see them taking construction trucks and just pushing bodies into mass graves. It's by far the most disturbing, disrespectful, just utter brutality seen in film. Sorry. After these films are shown, defendants shift. Goring looks away. Stryker's face twists. Some cover their eyes. Others stare. Blank. Broken. One by one, the masks crack. The room fills with muffled sobs from the gallery. Even hardened reporters weep. This wasn't testimony. This was irrefutable horror. Their own crimes played back to them in flickering black and white. No denial survives that moment. Then we get to the cross-examinations. Goring takes the stand. 3 days. Jackson grills him. Goring fights back, arrogant, verbose, turning questions into speeches. Jackson falters once. The room holds its breath. Then Britain's Sir David Maxwell Fyfe steps in. Razor sharp, he pins Goring on the murder of 50 escaped British airmen. Goring squirms, lies unravel. The courtroom crackles with electricity. Other moments sear. Rudolf Höss, Auschwitz commandant, calmly describes gassing 2 million people. No emotion, just facts. The air grows very heavy. Viewers at home and in that room feel the weight of evil laid bare. But on October 1st, 1946, the verdicts come in. 12 death by hanging. Goring, Ribbentrop, Keitel, Kaltenbrunner, Rosenberg, Frank, Frick, Stryker, Sockel, Jodl, Seyss, Inquart, Bormann in absentia. Goring hears his fate and smirks one last time. 3 life sentences. Others 10 to 20 years, 3 acquittals. Controversial sparks of outrage. On October 16th, 1946, at dawn, the gallows wait. One by one, they climb. Ribbentrop first. God protect Germany. Drop. Keitel. I call on Almighty God. Snap. Stryker screams anti-Semitic slurs to the end. Goring cheats the rope. Cyanide smuggled in, found dead in his cell, blood on his lips, a final act of defiance. The bodies burn at Dachau, which was another concentration camp. The same ovens they fed. And the aftermath ripples. Subsequent trials hit doctors, judges, industrialists. Denazification falters. Many slip back into power. Germany wrestles with guilt or denial. Nuremberg didn't end evil. It didn't. But it changed everything. No more just following orders, no head of state immunity. It birthed the Genocide Convention, updated Geneva rules. Decades later, Yugoslavia, Rwanda tribunals, then 1998, the Rome Statute, the International Criminal Court rises in The Hague. Because of Nuremberg, because the world said never again, and it meant it. Those superpowers like the US still stand outside its reach. For now. The courtroom lights went out in 1946, but the echoes never stopped. In every war crimes trial since, you hear Nuremberg. In every genocide prevented or prosecuted, you see their ghosts. Justice isn't perfect. It's very slow, painful, but it exists because 21 men once sat in that dock, and the world refused to look away. Thanks for joining me on Red True Crime. Drop in the comments which Nuremberg moment chilled you the most. Next trial? Like, share, subscribe, stay vigilant. The past isn't dead, it's watching. Remember that. We only know how to change things in the future by knowing what's happened in the past. The past matters. History matters. And you need to know what is to understand it so you know not what to do in the future. Because history does have a habit of repeating itself. So there is that. But this is Rebecca with Red True Crime. Good night. And please share, like, comment, subscribe. And any questions, any suggestions, I will cover them. Have a good night, everybody.